Okay, hello and welcome to version 5 of our password generator application. We have started building this from the ground upwards. We've started putting in our menus, and we just last version we got our password being generated. So if we just kind of refresh our memory of where we're at. Oh, I'm zoomed out a bit. Let's zoom in a little bit more. We should be able to. Oh, no. Can't even run my own app. Okay, we should be able to log in. Okay, it's all gone wrong. Okay, here we go. We should be able to log in as Bob, password 1. And then we should be able to generate a password, and we can give it a number like 5 characters, and it will generate me a password of 5 characters. And I can enter, and I go back to my account menu. I can exit my account, and I can exit the main menu. Actually, I've just realized we have exit in our account menu, but actually what the option wants to be is we want to be login out, right? Exit doesn't make sense. Log out. Log out. That makes much more sense. Okay, so before I get carried away, let's check our to-do list and see what we're going to be doing in this version. So we need to increment the version, of course, because now we are working on version 0.5. It's actually a new week. What does that mean? I guess that makes it 1.1. Controversial. Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm going for it. We're officially on version 1.1. I don't know. I'm sure there's like whole a rule set around how you version software. We'll just do weeks and days. That'll be nice and easy. So last week we did 4 versions, and then this week I'm hoping to do 5 versions every weekday this week, a new version, and we should by the end of that have a pretty functional application. So without further ado, let's add some function to our application here. So you can see next on our to-do list is create a retrieve password function. And what this will do is this will, if you've got a password stored, let's say your Google login details, right, for your Google account. If you've got your password stored, you can search for the website like google.com, and it will give you your username and password. Now, we can only really do this if we're able to store stuff in our account, right? If we can't store anything, then we don't need to retrieve anything. So actually, this is probably a little bit backwards. We should probably look at storing our passwords for our different websites before we then start thinking about how we retrieve them. And then we'll think about maybe creating an account option, and then we will think about user interface and how we might make this look a little bit better than just a little console application. So today's task, create a store password function. Now, this is going to be 2 parts here to this. There's going to be writing to a file. Writing to a file, and there is going to be encrypting the data. Now, when we did our username, so in here we've got our users.txt, we hashed our username and password, you might remember. You probably do remember because I went on about it quite a lot. Now, hashing and encryption, you can think of as kind of 2 different things. So let's do some more hashes here. Hashing is one way. Okay, if I hash something, I can never take that resulting hash and do a process on it to get back what I got. Okay, and then when we did the hashing, I explained how it's like blending a dinner up, and it's hard to tell what it began like because it's just a slurry now. And that's the same with hashing, right? You convert it into something that's just impossible to know what it started as. Whereas encryption is different because that is 2-way. So if I encrypt something, there is a method, a key that you need, and if you apply that method and key, you are able to decrypt the message, okay? And so with our username, that's fine. Our user is going to remember their username and password for this account, for this password manager. But for all the passwords we're storing, obviously it's pointless if they have to remember them all and type them in. So what we're going to do is we're going to implement some encryption to try and prevent someone from stumbling along like all of their information and being able to just see a list of sites and passwords. So we're gonna be thinking firstly about how we write to the file, and then thinking about how we encrypt the data. And to do that, we're going to create a new file. Fantastic. So down here in account menu, we have our retrieve password and our store password functions, and they're going to be stored in a separate file. So I'm going to add a file, and we're going to call this, I think we're going to call it storage, because this is all about storing data. You might just call it data handling. I'm just going to call it storage.py, but if you have a better idea, then by all means, this is not optimal by any means. So we've got our storage.py here, and what we're going to do is we're going to just take these names. So we've got retrieve password and store password. Let's just copy retrieve password, and we're going to define retrieve password. And I'm just going to, we'll just type in return true. It's a good kind of placeholder thing if you're writing a function, because it won't work if you, it's very hard for my mouth to work while my fingers are typing. It won't work if you have it like this and you like just leave the line below. That's a syntax error. You need something indented in here. So we'll just return true to make the program happy. So we've got our two functions. Boom, lovely stuff. Unfortunately, we should probably put some actual logic in there to get it working, rather than just, yeah, return true, job done. So to store our password, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to write to a file, okay? And when we, our users, when they have an account, they need to have an account that is the name of their account, right? I guess we should probably have it as the hash. Unless we hash the hash with their password, because then you couldn't link the two. Maybe that's over the top. Maybe that's very over the top. Because we've got this users.txt here. So what we want is we can think about that when we do the account creation. We can think about how we deal with the user's information. But what we'll do for now is we will just create a file, and we will call it bob.txt. Okay, so just the username. And we might think about how we actually name this and structure this at a later date in order to make it more secure, rather than just having the username there in plain sight. In fact, that kind of goes against everything we've done here in users.txt, doesn't it? That's going to be no good. Let's use this hash instead. It's going to be a nasty name. In fact, maybe we should just use the first few letters of the hash. Let's go, so the username, let's take the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's take the first 12 characters of Bob's hash, and let's give it that name for now. Okay, so that is our file name for Bob. And we might think about how we might hash this so that if someone was to access these files, they wouldn't be able to see the link between this this hash here and this here, so they can link this to a person. We'll see. We'll think about it. But let's just get this kind of basic functionality going on. Now we're going to have to be writing to a file, so we should write a function that will allow us to write to a file. I'm pretty sure in helper we have a function that allows us to read. Yeah, we've got read file here. So we're going to do a very similar one actually. Let's copy this. No, it's not going to be that. It's going to have a similar structure. And it kind of makes sense to have this in helper as well. If we've got a read file in here, we should probably kind of try and keep things together. So we'll say write file. We want the file name. We're also going to choose the mode. Okay. Now there's two like main types of write mode when you're writing to a file. You can either append, which means just add to the end of the file, so don't overwrite any of the contents, or there's write mode, and write will just start at the top and like it'll just delete everything and then overwrite everything. So you kind of need to be thoughtful about which one you're using. If the file doesn't exist to begin with and you use write mode, it will create the file automatically for you. Whereas I think append mode will give you an error if the file doesn't exist. So we will say the mode is append mode to keep it safe, unless we say otherwise. So we say mode equals A, and if we can always define mode when we use this function in order to give ourselves some more control and just put it into write mode. But at the moment, we'll keep it as default in append mode. Okay, so we're going to open the file name and we're going to give it whatever mode we give it. And we're going to say as file. And then we also need a message. So let's put in a message here. And we are going to say, do I want a message? I guess, yeah, I guess it's going to be our message. Oh, I guess we should probably say data. And our data is just going to be 3 values in an array. So we're going to have site name. And you can see here that I'm just kind of defining what this is going to be like in as the default parameter. So if you use this function without giving it this, it will just come up with default values, and so you'll be able to see something's gone wrong. So data equals site name. We're going to have a username, and we're going to have password. Okay, so then we're going to open our file as file. This isn't very generic though. I'm regretting this already. Let's get let's just say let's keep data as a string. Okay, there's no yeah, I'm overcomplicating this. Because if we wanted to use the write file function later, we don't want to have to give it an array with 3 things for it to write in. Although I guess if we gave it an array, indecision is killing me. Let's just keep it. Let's keep it as an array because we don't have to know the length of the array, so it could just be an array with 1 thing, and that's fine. Okay, so we're going to say for item in data. So we're going to do a little for loop and go through each thing that's in this array that we give this function, and it's going to be in the structure of site name, username, password. So for item in data, we are going to say what we're going to say. We're going to, I guess we all want it to be all on the same line, right? So we want to say item, let's say message equals an empty string. Okay, and then we're going to say our message is equal plus equals our item. We're going to add each string together, but we're going to add a comma in between them. Just feels a little bit clunky. Let's instead of for item in data, let's do for I in range len data. I'm kind of overdoing this because potentially we could give this more complex arrays with more data and more details about the sites. So rather than just the website, the username and the password, there might also be a pin and some notes and some other things. And so we want to kind of be able to go through all of those and put them into a long line and then add that to the file. So we're going to say message plus equals item. And then we're going to, oh no, so not item anymore. We're going to say data at position I. And then we're going to say, if I is equal to our length of data minus 1, then we don't want to add a comma to the end, right? We want commas between all of them apart from the very end one. And if it does equal that, then what we're going to do is we're going to say message plus equals a new line character to put us onto the next line. Lovely. So our message plus equals data I. So I think what we can actually do is we can say, we can make this simpler. We can say file.write data I plus a comma. Instead of keeping this message variable, we can keep writing to the file. So we can write the first value, write the second value, write the third value. And we're going to say, I'm going to copy that, and we're going to paste that in there. And we've got this around the wrong way. So if it's the very last thing, we're going to add in the new line character. Sorry, I've really I've gone around the houses here. Okay, so what are we doing? So we want to get rid of message plus equals n. Okay. So for each item in the data, okay, we're going to go through each one and we're going to write it to our file. Okay. And if it's not the very last thing in our array, if it's not right here, then we're going to add a comma to it, to the end, to separate each value. Okay. If it is the very last thing, instead of adding a comma to the end, we're going to add a new line so that the file is then on a new line. So then the next record that we put on, so a different website with a different username, or maybe the same username, but a different username, different password potentially, they'll be on a new line. Okay, this is cool. Okay, this is nice. So we've got this. We're opening our file. We're going through our data, and we are writing the data with a comma or a new line, depending on whether it's at the end or not. Lovely stuff. So now we should be able to jump into our storage file, and we can import that helper library. Import helper, and we are going to say helper.write file, and we need to give it the file name. So we're going to give it the file name. We're going to give it the data, and we can give it the mode. We're not going to give it a mode because it's defaulting to append. And this file's already created. We don't want to overwrite the data, so we just want to leave it in append. So we can leave that, that's fine. So now we need to find out what our file name variable is and what our data variable is, okay? Now, for store password, really, I guess we need to, I guess we probably just want to, we need to be past the username, right? We need their username in order to be able to hash it, get the hash of their thing, so this, and then take the first 12 characters from it. So that's what we're going to do first. So store password, where are we running that? Main. Let's come into here. So we should import storage here at the top. Import storage. And we're going to say storage.store password. And instead of passwords, we're going to say storage dot store account, store details. Okay. Password's a bit generic. It's a password manager. Let's keep it a password for now. There's bigger things to worry about. Okay. So what we really want to do is we want to hold on to the username. When the user types it in, we want to hold on to the username. So how do we get the, where does the username come from? So user logged in, we authentication.authenticate user. So we need to nip into there, and we need to have a way of getting this username from the person. So if we go down to authenticate user, you can see here we get the username hash. And really that's all we want, right? We want this identifier that we can identify this person with. So let's actually create a unique identifier. So what we'll do is we're going to call this the UID, the unique identifier. Okay, we're going to set that equal to our username hash, but we're going to take a slice of it. So we're going to say username hash, and we're going to put square brackets there, and we're going to go from the very start of it, so from the thing at the 0th position all the way up to, and I think including the 12th one. That might not be inclusive, but if it's 11 or 12 characters, it doesn't matter too much. And that's how we can like chop a bit of a string out, right? In fact, I'm pretty sure we can also say left. Can we say left equals left username hash and give it 12? Can we say that? It looks like we can say that. Undefined, no, we can't. We can't say left. I'm thinking of a different language, or maybe I'm thinking of pseudocode. Okay, so we've got our username hash there, and we're cutting those 12 characters. Now, this is still a little bit vulnerable because what we've got is we've got a substring of what their username hash is, right? We've got the first 12 characters of that. So we see 81b6 there, and then we see this file name with 81b6, and we can kind of match those two up, and we know that this belongs to that user. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add an extra layer of security here, and in the authentication, in order to make our UID, we're going to get our UID hash. So our UID hash is going to equal, we're going to generate a hash from the username hash. Okay, so we're going to take that hash and we're going to put it back into the hash function, and we're going to get out a completely new hash. And so whenever we get the username, we know that if we hash it twice, we will be able to get out their unique identifier, right? So if we hash that, so generate hash, this takes a string, encodes it, and then spits it out. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, lovely. So this will do that for us. And then we're going to say UID is equal to UID 0 to 12. So we're going to chop just the first 12 digits off. In fact, what we can probably do is stick these brackets on the end here and do that in one line. That's quite nice, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to say UID is equal to generate hash. We're going to get that hash returned from this function, and then Python's going to be like, oh, right, and then you want me to chop the first 12 digits off and just give you that. And that's what UID will be. Now, down here, when we return true, what I'd like to do is return true and return the UID. Okay, so I can put a comma there, and I can return UID. And then when we, in our main function, when we say user logged in equals authentication.authenticate user, what I can say is I can say user logged in, comma, UID. And what that will do is, it's annoying I can't have them side by side. That'll do. So we can see here we're returning one value. The first value is true, and the second value is our UID. When we return false, we probably just want to return false twice. Okay, false and false. Okay, so we're returning true and our UID. So first value is true, second value is UID. And then here in main, we're saying the first value, our user logged in, that's going to be the Boolean response, either true or false. And then our UID, the second value, that's either going to be our UID or it's going to be false, right? Because it didn't work and it wasn't a valid username. And so now we've got their unique identifier, okay? And we can use that as their file name. And that will be much, much easier, trust me. So when we start the account menu, we need to give it the UID. Okay, we need to tell our account menu function what their unique ID is so that we can track them essentially. So now if we come up here in our account menu, we need to tell our function definition to expect a unique identifier to be given to it. So we're going to say UID here. And then down here, when we say storage.store password, we're going to give it that unique identifier. Okay, so we've managed to take a value from one part of the program and push it through into another part of the program. And this is really, really strong because we're now able to use this in a completely different module, and we're able to get their UID. So we're going to say UID plus .txt, and that's going to be the file name, right? So that's our file name, and yeah, we can just leave it there. That's fine. Now we just need our data, okay? And our data is just going to be a series of questions that we ask the user. Now, there's one thing I just want to check in somewhere where we did that, generate hash. That I'm sure I've forgotten to do something. It seems fine though. Okay. And what we do need to do is we need to actually generate this ourselves, because we don't know what this is at the moment. It would be quite helpful if we had an account creation function at this point, because then we could add all this in. Maybe it's worth doing that before we do the storage, just to make our lives a little bit easier. Shall we? Yeah, we shall. Okay. So let's go into our generator function, and we're going to, this kind of creates things, right? It creates our password. This is all about creating our passwords. Maybe it should be an authentication. Yeah, because then we're kind of creating an account. Okay, let's do it in authentication. So in here, we're going to have a function called create account. And what we need to do is we need to ask the user for their username, their password, and then we're going to store that in users.txt, and we're going to create a new file with their unique identifier .txt, okay, ready for their kind of data to be written to it. So we're going to say username equals input. Okay, we're going to say their password equals input. And we are then going to hash them just like we did. So we're going to say username hash equals generate hash, and we're going to give it, say, username. You'll notice I've not put any commands in the input yet, like a string, but that's okay. We'll get to that. I just want to get the logic of this down before I make it look pretty. So password hash is equal to generate hash passwords. Okay, lovely stuff. So we've got our username hash, we've got our password hash. We're going to get our UID, and if I go into authenticate user, now there's a bit of duplication here, so it might be good if we actually just let's keep them separate, because we might want to tweak the functionality of each one. Sometimes that you can overdo these things. Okay, so our unique identifier, we're going to generate our hash with our username hash, and we're going to take from 0 to 12. Okay, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in its own function. Okay, get unique, get UID. And the reason I'm going to do this is if we decide to change the implementation of this at some point in the future, then we only have to change it in this function, and we can just say UID equals get UID here, and we don't have to worry about how it actually happens. We know we just give it the username hash, and that's fine. Okay, so we're going to do that. That's fine. If we decide that we want it to be 5 characters rather than 12, or if we decide we want it to be 36 characters, or we want it to be hashed 3 more times before it comes back to us, then we can do all of that in here. And so we can use the same line here, down here in authenticate, and it should just make things a little bit more straightforward. Okay, so what I would also like to do is let's do Yeah, we could also put our user message in a function. So we could say something like get. Do we want that? Yeah. So define get hashed credential, and we will take a message to the user. And what we're going to do is we're simply going to take what we've got here. So where we've got username equals input, and then we generate the hash, right? We're going to copy that. Well, we're going to take that, we're going to cut it, we're going to paste it here. Okay. So we're going to say user input is equal to input, and then we're going to put in this in the brackets here, our message to user, and we'll add on that little end bit. So say message, not a capital letter, message to user, and we'll concatenate that little colon and new line there. Okay, and then we're going to say we're going to copy that. We're going to generate our hash with our user input, and we're just going to return it. So we're just going to say return generate hash user input. So now what I can do is I can say username down here. I can say username equals get hash credential, and I can just put message to user. Right, so I can say please enter your username, and I can do exactly the same. Copy this and paste it here. Right, instead of username, I'm going to change this to password. Okay, and so we've just updated. Oh, this needs to be called passwords, not username. Okay, so we have instead of doing this in 4 lines, we've done it in 2, and we just kind of future-proofed it a little bit more as well. So this should actually be username hash, and this should be password hash. Now you'll notice that there's a very small time where their password is actually stored in memory now, because as soon as they input it, it's hashed and then returned. The hash is returned, and the original password is forgotten. So we're kind of keeping this all safe. We've really gone down the rabbit hole here. I'm sorry, I've gone wildly off topic, but here we are. Here we are. So now we can use this function up here, right? This is the whole reason I wanted to do it. So in create an account, okay, we can use this exact 2-line thing, but we can just alter the message slightly. So we can come up here and we can go bosh, and we can say, please enter a username, please enter a password. Okay, lovely. So we don't need this username hash, password hash anymore, because it's all done in that function. We're just saving ourselves loads of unnecessary code. And as much as I don't want to overcomplicate things as we go through this, I'd also like to try and not have just a huge bulk of code as we're writing it. And so trying to strike a balance with not being too, everything's contained in functions, and it's really hard to see what anything does because it's all hidden away. But also it not be a million lines long, and so it's difficult to read that way. So it's trying to get the right balance. Okay, so when we create our account, we get our UID as well. We take our username hash and we use get UID. So we are literally going to say UID equals that, and we're going to return our UID here. I've been hopping around all over the place. I do hope you're able to keep up with me here. Oh, lordy. Okay, so lovely stuff. So now that we have got our UID, we're going to create their data file where we're going to store all their passwords. So we're going to say, have I got helper? Yeah, I'm going to say helper dot write file, and we are going to give it the UID, and we're going to add .txt to it. Okay, so that's the name of their file, and then we need to give it some data. Now the data we're going to give it is going to be nothing. We're just going to give it an empty array with just an empty string in it, because we don't actually want to write anything, although that will put it onto a new line. So maybe what we should do is we should initialize it with what the actual headings are, much like in the users. If you see here, I put username, password. Maybe we should initialize it with that. So where did I put that? Where is it hidden? Oh, I got too many files. Okay, it's not in this one. It's in storage. No, it's not. It's in helper. Yeah, it's in helper. Okay, so we got site name, username, password. So we're going to use this. In fact, that means we don't have to give it the data value. Okay, yeah. Cool. So if we go back to authentication, hello, there we go. So we're not going to give it the data. We're going to leave the standard ones, and it will put those placeholders in for us. And we do want to tell it what the mode is, though. So we're going to say the mode is equal to write. So we want it to be in write mode so that it actually creates the file if the file doesn't exist. We know the file doesn't exist because they're a brand new user. So that's that. That's that. Now what we need to do is we need to write their credentials to the users.txt file, right? So we need to say, and because we've written this write file, it's actually going to be super easy, right? So we're going to say helper.write file again, and this time we're going to go into users.txt. This is the really good thing. If you take just a second while you're writing a function to think about how you might make this a little bit more generic, then later on down the road when you're programming, suddenly you can use it here and you can use it there and you can use it for this and you can use it for that, and it makes your life a lot easier. So we're going to give it users.txt. We're going to give it an array with our username hash and our password hash. And we are going to, we don't need to create a file, so we're not going to change what mode it's in. A is fine. And that should just work. Now, I'm fairly confident this is going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove Bob from, I'm going to remove Bob from the actual users.txt file here. And I'm just going to create, I'm going to duplicate this actually. Can I duplicate? No, I can't. Let's just copy this whole file just in case it all goes wrong, and let's just add a temp.txt just in case we balk this up completely. And when I say we, I mean me. I don't mean you. You poor sausage. You've just come along for the journey, and I'm here blaming you, throwing you under the bus. Okay, so I'm going to jump into my .repl.it file, and instead of running main.py, we're going to run authentication.py. Yeah, that sounds right. No, I don't want to debug it. So in authentication, we're not actually running any code. We just got a bunch of definitions. So right at the end here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, what am I going to say? I'm going to say create account. And we're going to go through the account creation process. And hopefully, if I've got this right, in our users.txt, I should be able to delete this whole line. Okay. And it should, I want it to start here. That's right. And then it should just add in that, and it should be an exact clone of this temp.txt, okay? Because we're going to put in Bob, we're going to put in the world's strongest password, password 1, and we should get the same hashes out, okay? But we should have a text file that is the first 12 characters of the hashed username hash. I really hope you're keeping up. I do apologize. Maybe there's like YouTube, I know you can like play things at like half speed. Maybe that might help. So we don't want to define this. We just want to, I don't know what's going on anymore. We're going to create an account and we're going to give this a go. So I'm going to delete this file. This file is nonsense now. We don't need this anymore. Yep, delete this. Okay, and we are looking for a new text file to be created, and we're looking for our hashes to be put in here, and they should be exactly the same as the ones that are in this temp file. Let's have a look. Let's see if that's the case. So let's run. Okay, it's asking us for a username. That's good. So I'm going to put in Bob, password 1, and of course there's an error. Get UID takes 0, but 1 was given. What have I done there? Is it really obvious? Have you been screaming at the screen the whole time while I've been yapping on? Oh, okay. I forgot to tell it that it wants a username hash. Okay, so get UID, I didn't define, in the definition, I didn't tell it that it should expect a username hash, and then we're using it there to hash it. I could reduce this to just hash and then put a hash in here, but actually it's nice to be reminded that we need to be using the username hash, and that's kind of the functionality of how this program works. That's going to be good. Okay, let's run this again. Actually, nothing got added here. No, okay, we're all fine. Okay, let's go for it again. So please enter a username, Bob. Please enter a password, password1. Okay, fantastic. You will see two things have happened here. Firstly, in our users.txt, we've had these two hashes written here. And we also have this file here. Look at this. And we can see its name at the top is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 characters long. And we have the structure of our file here, right? We can have site name, comma, username, comma, password. Lovely. And it's on a new line ready to go. That is fantastic. Let's just check this against temp here. So if I just go to the end and copy this from temp and paste it down here in users, we can see these are exactly the same hashes. So that has worked beautifully. I never had any doubt. I knew it was going to be absolutely perfect. Let's keep temp. Temp might be helpful in the future. There's no harm in it being there. So we now have a function where when we sign up a new user to the service, we add them to the log, and we create them a file where we're going to store all of their information. This is really important because obviously, this is going to be like the first thing we want to do, right? When we open the app and we've never used it before, we want to be able to create our account and then start adding passwords to it. And so we need a way of tracking that. Now this here, D73B742B0, blah, 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 that has absolutely nothing to do, even though it does have, we know how we got it, but it has nothing to do with our username here, okay? It's a completely different thing. So it'd be very hard to match one to the other, which is great. Okay. What did we start this version doing? I don't think we did it. So that's right. We were creating a store password function. So if we go to storage, how far did we get on this? So we're passing our UID through. So now what's really good about this is this should just work. And let's actually test this, because now we have Bob's correct file name, right? So this here should be working. And so let's just put in some dummy values. Let's say data equals, and let's just say hello, hi, and I can't think of another word for hello. Hola. I think that's one. We'll do that. And what we'll do is we will run storage.py. So in our .repl.it file, instead of running authentication, we will run storage.py. No, we won't. We need to run the whole thing, right? Because we need to select that option. That needs to work. Let's also just take a second here to call this storage.retrievePassword, which will be fine. That's lovely. Okay, yeah, we need to log in because it needs to get our UID from us. That's fine. So we're going to run in repl.it. We're going to run our main.py, and this all should just work. And now all we're doing is we're testing that this file gets written to. Okay, this file that was created for Bob. Now imagine if you had 100 users. There's no way a human would be able to tell which account belongs to which person, because this is just gobbledygook, right? And so this is adding a layer of security for scalability. Now, while we're testing it, it's very obvious that this belongs to Bob. But once you scale this up and use it practically, it's not so much of an issue. Okay, let's run this and see if we can get these dummy values put in. So storage here, data equals that. We're going to then write that to that. This should just work. It'll be fine. Here we go. So why are we creating an account? Because I did not take account away from authentication. So let's get rid of this line here now. That has done its job. We don't need to create another account. We've already done it. And we're going to tuck that away in the main menu. Okay. So we could probably do that now as well, very quickly. It's bad when you get sidetracked from the thing you got sidetracked from. It can be difficult. So we're going to have login, and then the second thing, and we put this in an array, right? So now we can just literally add in this, and it will just work. It's just exquisite. Create account, okay? And we're going to print those out. If user choice equals 1, return true. Else return false. If user choice is equal to 2, we're going to say authentication.create account. So where are we here? Authentication.create account. Pretty sure we called it that. And that will allow us to create an account. So once repl.it just loads back up again. Come on, internet. Oh, my poor slow internet connection. Here we go. Okay. So if I run this now, we should have 3 options when we log in. Yep, lovely. So we've got login, create account, and exit. And if I press 2, I should be prompted. Yeah. Now I've not made this pretty. I'm not given it like a title. Should we do that? Yeah, let's do that quickly. Okay, so if we go into authentication, we're importing helper already. So in the create account, let's say helper. What did we call it last time? We called it something like title. Print title. There we go. repl.it suggested it for me. So when we print a title, I guess we just give it the title. So we're just going to say create a new account. Let's stop that. Let's run that. And let's create a new account. Lovely, 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 lovely. See why we write these functions? They do come in helpful. They do. Okay. Also, once we have written these, once we've got the input from here, we should really be cleaning the screen. We should really be clearing the screen as well. So we're going to take the input, and then we're going to just say we're just going to say, what was it? Helper.clear. Yeah, helper.clear. And then that's going to clear this title. So then we should probably copy this and pop it here, and then pop it here. Yeah, that's fine. I just copied that line 3 times. That's really efficient. But so now we should be able to choose to create an account, and then we can enter a username like Steve, and then that clears it away. Okay, and there. So then I could actually, I don't need to put it there. Okay, I'm getting carried away here. So we've prettied this up. This is fine. This is working. But what were we actually testing? What have I got so sidetracked about? So we want to log in, and we want to make sure that we write that dummy data here. And what was the dummy data? Oh, thank you for bearing with me. This I've really gone off on one here, haven't I? Right, where was I 10 minutes ago when I first started talking about doing this? Storage, of course, storage. Yeah, so we're writing hello. Oh yeah, hi Ola. Okay, so let's log in as Bob. Let's enter our. Ooh, this should really say log in here, shouldn't it? I'm sorry. I'm not doing this on purpose, but it should. When it says please enter your username, we should be logging in. So this is authentication.authenticate. So authenticate user. Yeah, this should be like the same as this, really, shouldn't it? Helper.print title. And we should have login. It's really important that we have these messages to the user, because otherwise you don't really know whereabouts in the app you are. So we're going to say login. And we'll do the same down here, because I put in that clear function in the get hashed credential up here. Put in clear, so I know it's going to clear that. So as soon as I type my password in, it will then clear that from the screen, and it will print this again. That'll all be fine. Okay. Let's try and do this. So login, huzzah, we're on the login screen. It's really obvious now. I'm going to type in Bob. That's going to clear that away, but it saved it. And now I'm going to enter in my password 1. Lovely. I've logged into my account. I'm now in the account menu. It would be nice to have like a successfully logged in message pop up for like a second, but let's just test this. Okay, so we want to store a password. We're going to press 3 to store. And let's have a look at our file. Nothing errored. Hooray! We did it! Sorry, I was really loud. I was way too excited about that. So we've got hello, hi, and hola in the correct file. This is the only file. There was no errors. It all just works. Now, we've not got much error checking or anything in here at the moment, and will need to go through and kind of try and break this and fix it. But this is great. This is fantastic. This is lovely stuff. So now instead of hello, hi, and hola, forgive my lack of foreign languages experience. Now what we need to do is we need to get our input, right? So our data is going to equal a array, just like I had, but it's going to have the website. It's going to have, let's call it website. It's going to have the username, and it's going to have the password. And obviously, it's really important that they're in that format, because when we read them back out later, we need to know what one's in what position so that we know what to do with them. Okay, so we're going to say website is equal to, and I guess really we need to say helper.title. What is it? Print title. And we're going to say add count to password manager. Bit of a wordy one, this one, but I want it to be clear what it's doing. Okay, add account to password manager. So our website is going to equal. Now, do we have anything in helper for this? Okay, I'm tempted to do what we did in storage, in authentication, get hash credential, where we do this and it returns that. But we'll do a more generic one. So let's copy this, get the get hash credential function from the authentication file. Let's take that and let's put it in our helper, okay? And this is just going to be a generic one for taking input from the user. So we're going to say get user input, okay? Now we're basically just adding to the input function, right? So user input equals input message to user. Doing this will keep things nice and consistent as well, which will be good. We're then going to clear the screen when we've got their input, and then we're just going to return their user input. We're not going to generate a hash from it. We're just going to return their user input. I don't need to say helper because I'm in the helper file, so I can just say clear, and I'm going to return the user input. And so now down, where was I? Hello, help. Okay, website equals, I'm going to say helper dot get user input, and we're going to say please enter. Actually, let's just say website name. Okay, and you can notice I don't need to put the formatting there, like the colon and the new line, because that's all dealt with in the function. So if later I decide that I want to change how everything's formatted, I can just change it in one place in the function, and it will just work. It will just work. Okay, so let's take this whole line and let's copy it 2 more times. And we're going to have our username, and we're going to have our password. Okay, so we're going to say username and password. Now, ideally, this get user input, we could do with another one where we print the title each time as well, because otherwise I'm going to have to duplicate print title again and again. Every time it clears the screen, I need to print the title again, then I want to print the question, and then it clears the screen, so I have to print the title again. So actually, we could probably build on this as well, and we could probably write another function. I'm function mad. I can't help it. This video is only going to be half an hour. We're gonna. Where are we? Print title. It's not even in here. Where is it? Get user input. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to say get. We're going to define get user input with title. Okay, and we're going to ask to have a title, and then we're going to have a message to user. And all we're going to do is we're going to say print title, and we're going to give it the title, and then we're going to say get user input, and we're going to return our get user input, and we're going to give it the message to user. Okay, so we've got a function here that will just do these 2 lines of code so that we don't have to keep doing them over and over and over again. So now what I can do, now this is a little bit long, okay? I might say get titled input. And let's get rid of all of that. That's maybe a little bit nicer. So that's all good. So let's jump back into storage. And instead of saying here, this, we're going to say get titled input. And we're going to take our title and we're going to pop it as the first argument in the brackets here. So add account, password manager, website name. Now, even better, what we're going to do is we're going to say title is equal to add account, password manager, and then we're just going to use that variable. Because then I only have to type the string once and everything else is just perfect. Okay, that goes in there, that goes in there, lovely stuff. And now we're just going to replace these functions here with that. So now it will print the title out, it will print the question out. When we get the response from the user, it will then clear the screen, print the title out again, and then print the next question out. So here, where we're asking 3 questions, it's going to be a much more slick experience, hopefully. This will give us the data, and then it will write that. Now, we're going to write it in plain text at the moment, and tomorrow we will look at how we can encrypt that text and make it better, but it's just going to be, I just need to sleep at some point, and so we won't do the encryption today. But let's check this out. So I got rid of hola, hi, and hello from there. That's all fine. We've still got 1 user in here. That's all good. So let's try adding a password in again. So let's log in as Bob with password 1. We're going to store a password and add account to password manager, website name. So let's pretend, for instance, that this is for www.wikipedia.org, my favorite account, my Wikipedia account. Username, we'll say Mr. Johnson, and password, we will say computing. Okay. Voila. Now, again, it would be nice to have like a little message there that like data logged successfully or something, rather than just coming back to the account menu. Some like positive feedback's always nice. But if we check our file here, we can see that we have our website, wikipedia.org, our username, Mr. Johnson, and our password, computing. Oh, it just works. It's fantastic. This app is coming along so good. I'm so happy with it. It's great. It's it's ugly in a few little places, but that's its charm. That's what makes it so lovely. What am I talking about? I don't know. So what have we done today? We have actually created an account creation option, which is insane. That does need double checking. So we will need to maybe put test account creation option here now. Okay, that's all good. Did that. That's fab. And we have we're writing to a file for a create store password function. We just need to encrypt the data tomorrow. So we can get rid of that. That is working. So now we need to just say encrypt the store password function. And then we can start looking at creating a retrieve function. Let's actually drop this down the list, because that's definitely not. Oh, that's our little hashing example. Maybe we can do that here. Wow. Okay, so we now have a program that will allow us to create an account securely and store our information securely. We can log into it. We can generate secure passwords of any length using, we haven't actually given the user the options of choosing whether they want symbols, numbers, letters, capitals, that kind of thing. But they could, the functionality's there. We're just not asking them if they want it. But we're doing that. And now we can also store their passwords in a file that is not associated with, like, the name of the file is not associated with their stored information in our users file. So it's separate here, and it's the code that we've written that allows us to link those together by hashing this hash, hashing the hash, and then taking the first 12 characters. And that gets us this file name here. I think this is a good place to stop. Thank you so much for continuing with me on this. It's been a pleasure coding along with you. I hope you've been able to keep up, and I hope it's not been too wild and all over the place. You can see my brain's a little bit scatty, but hopefully you can see how a program can come together like this, and how writing things in a kind of modular way really helps us to test things out and keep things separate, and like the reuse of code as well, putting things away in functions and being able to then just make our code like read better and look better is really good. It's not about, I guess it's not about trying to make it all just like a one-line piece of code, right? But it's just about trying to make it easier to read. This has been great. I will see you in version 6, which I will be streaming tomorrow, and we will implement our encryption. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.